And away we go, episode 1141 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Tuesday, August 26, 2025. Monday was August 25th, exactly 4 months until Christmas. And we as Commanders fans on Monday morning got a Christmas-like gift. The breaking news of the Terry McLaurin having agreed on a contract extension. Yes, agreement on a contract extension. The saga is done. The drama is over. A reported 3-year contract extension, the financial terms of which are not yet clear, but whatever. The ordeal is no more. Hold-in concluded. Trade request rescinded. Terry McLaurin, the Commander certified, no doubt WR1, is poised to be good to go for Week 1 of the NFL's 2025 regular season. Hello and welcome to this Tuesday installment of the Al Galdi podcast. We have arrived at the day of the Commanders Cutdown to 53. 4 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday is when each NFL team must have its active roster at a maximum of 53 players. The Commanders on Monday afternoon announced having released 6 players, including receivers Michael Gallup and Braylon Sanders, so the cuts already have started. Next segment, reaction to and analysis of the Commanders and Terry McLaurin agreeing on this 3-year contract extension. The following segment, a really good guest, Adam Kilgore of the Washington Post. Adam has been covering the Commanders. He'll give us his insight on the McLaurin extension. We'll preview the Commanders cut down to 53, and we'll preview a potential contract extension for quarterback Jayden Daniels in a few years. How high will that money go? And also on the show, I'll talk Nationals and Orioles. The Nats, they on Monday night lost at the New York Yankees 10-5 in a game in which the Nats scored all 5 of their runs in the top of the 9th. That was classic garbage time. Though center fielder Jacob Young did hit a 2-out grand slam. The O's, they on Monday evening blew a 3-1 fifth-inning lead in a 4-3 loss to the Boston Red Sox at Oriole Park at Camden Yards. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Feedback on the Commanders in the NFL's 2025 preseason going 0-3 with a league worst point differential of -71. Email from Brian Young. Writes Brian, yes, it's preseason. Yes, the starters didn't play. Yes, I should not be worried. Yes, I am worried. Thank you for the email, Brian. Email from Thomas. Writes Thomas, Al, putting aside the offense for a minute, the defense looks terrible. Let's just say the starters will be a little better. The backups look worse than last year's. Can anyone tackle? Can anyone steal the edge? Does anyone care about stopping the run? Sorry for that outburst. Is Joe Witt Jr. all talk and no coaching? With regard to the offense, do any of these backup receivers know how to catch? What is going on with Luke McCaffrey's development? Every time he touched the ball, he looked like he'd never run in the open field before. At least he can block. Are we really to believe all of this will be fixed by a cut down to 53? Help, Al, help. Thank you for the email, Thomas. As we discussed on Monday's show, episode 1140, to panic over what happened in a preseason in which so many of the Commander starters / key players played so little is ridiculous. But it's not ridiculous to have questions about the team's depth of what we saw in the preseason, especially considering that there already were questions about the team's depth. Who knows what to think about the defense? Is it better on paper as compared to last season's defense? Yes, but what's also better on paper is the list of expected opposing quarterbacks for the team in the 2025 regular season as compared to the quarterbacks who the team faced in the 2024 regular season, during which the Commanders, due to a variety of circumstances, ended up facing a lackluster group of opposing quarterbacks. With the obvious caveat that guys can get hurt and or benched, here are your expected opposing quarterbacks for the Commanders in the 2025 regular season. Russell Wilson, Jordan Love, Geno Smith, Michael Penix Jr., Justin Herbert, Caleb Williams, Dak Prescott, Patrick Mahomes, Sam Darnold, Jared Goff, Tua Tagovailoa, Bo Nix, J.J. McCarthy, Russell Wilson, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts. Now, I would call that list of opposing quarterbacks manageable. Not easy, but manageable, as in able to be managed by a competent defense. Will the Commanders' defense this coming regular season be competent? We'll see. I have received some feedback on the Orioles. Email from Doug Wilson off the O's this past Friday afternoon announcing having signed catcher / first baseman Samuel Basallo to a contract extension. What reportedly is an 8-year, $67 million contract extension, writes Doug. Hey, Galdi, what was it about Basallo that made the Birds extend him and not Gunnar or Westberg or Holiday? Is Basayo more of a sure thing, or does it have something to do with his agent, background, meaning the other guys would not have extended so cheaply? Please explain sports finance so we don't have to. Thank you for the email, Doug. As we talked about on Monday's show, Samuel Basayo is not represented by the Boras Corporation, i.e. super agent Scott Boras, who is known to despise contract extensions for players prior to them becoming free agents. Shortstop Gunnar Henderson, third baseman / second baseman Jordan Westburg, and second baseman Jackson Holliday all are Boras clients. So that right there is why the O's got an extension with Basayo done as opposed to an extension with Henderson, Westburg, or Holliday. You look at the Nationals, three of their top contract extension candidates, outfielders James Wood and Dylan Cruz, and starting pitcher MacKenzie Gore, all are Scott Boras clients. Shortstop C.J. Abrams, however, is not a Boras client, so there would seem to be legitimate hope that the Nats could get a contract extension done with Abrams. The Nats, though, are responsible for the greatest instance of a young star player who is a Scott Boras client signing a contract extension prior to becoming a free agent. Starting pitcher Steven Strasburg in May 2016. And I will never forget the look on Boras's face during the press conference for that extension. The look on Boras's face screamed, I can't believe I'm letting one of my clients actually do this. And that contract extension worked out very well for the Nats. Strasburg was the 2019 World Series MVP, but he in November 2019 opted out of that contract. The Nats in December 2019 re-signed him to a 7-year, $245 million contract, and that is maybe / probably the worst contract in MLB history. Email from Terry on the O's being ravaged by injury for a second consecutive season. Writes Terry, greetings, Al. Shouldn't the analytics be screaming to Mike Elias that he has a problem with his trainers and medical staff and their approach? This is now 2.5 seasons in a row that injuries have bit the birds awfully hard. 2023 was somewhat masked by their continued winning, but 2024 and this year, not so much. Yeah, all teams suffer injuries over the course of 162, and yes, all teams suffer a bit of happenstance over 162, but for the Orioles, it just feels like something is amiss with the approach. Your thoughts? Terry, a very long-time listener. P.S. Enjoy the kids' birthdays. Trust me, this time with them as youngins flies by way too fast. Well, thank you very much for that email, Terry. Orioles Executive Vice President and General Manager Mike Elias 100% should conduct a deep dive into the team's injury problems of the last few seasons. I'd be surprised if he doesn't do that. Heck, he may have already started doing that. Some injuries, of course, are bad luck. Some injuries are due to players being injury-prone, like outfielder Tyler O'Neill, who the O's signed this past offseason. The guy came to the O's with a substantial injury history, and sure enough, he's currently in the midst of his third stint on the 10-day injured list this season. But what about something like what has happened with catcher Adley Rutschman this season? Rutschman was on the 10-day injured list from June 21st, retroactive to June 20th to July 28th due to a left oblique strain. The O's this past Thursday afternoon announced having put him on the 10-day injured list retroactive to August 18th due to a right oblique strain. What is the deal with that? You know, what is that about? Why are this guy's obliques so fragile this season? Also, a lot of hamstring strains for Orioles players this season. Infielder Jordan Westburg, who's currently on the 10-day injured list due to a sprained right ankle. He was on the 10-day injured list from April 28th, retroactive to April 27th to June 10th. Due to a left hamstring strain. The O's this past Friday afternoon announced having placed starting pitcher Brandon Young on the 15-day injured list due to a left hamstring strain. The O's on July 29th announced having placed reliever Colin Selby on the 15-day injured list due to a left hamstring strain. Why have there been all of these hamstring strains? Injuries, to me, are the number one reason for the Orioles' disappointing season, but this is a second consecutive season of the team getting hammered by injury. The O's need to find out why. Hey, football season is underway. Labor Day weekend is this weekend. Fall grilling season is coming. Now is a great time to get yourself or someone who you care about Omaha Steaks. And here's a great deal for listeners of the Al Galdi podcast. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during Omaha Steaks' Labor Day sale, and for an extra $35 off, use the promo code ALGALDI at checkout. I cannot say enough good things about Omaha Steaks. The food is delicious. Our family loves, yes, the steaks, but also the chicken, the hamburgers, the hot dogs. My 8-year-old son cannot get enough of Omaha Steaks' hot dogs. My wife loves Omaha Steaks' caramel apple tartlets. Omaha Steaks offers unrivaled quality and variety. Every bite is backed by a 100% guarantee. Every steak is perfectly aged to maximize tenderness, and every steak is hand-cut by Masters Butchers in America's heartland. Omaha Steaks is a family-owned company that has been America's original butcher since 1917. Treat yourself and your family, or someone who you care about, to Omaha Steaks and take advantage of the great deal for listeners of the Al Galdi podcast. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during Omaha Steaks' Labor Day sale, and for an extra $35 off, use the promo code ALGALDI at checkout. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $35 off with the promo code ALGALDI at checkout. See site for details. Hey, please consider subscribing to the podcast. If you're not already doing that, subscribing to the podcast costs nothing. Make sure that you never miss an episode and helps out the podcast a lot. And if you're already subscribing, thank you. It is outstanding news that the Commanders and receiver Terry McLaurin have agreed on a contract extension. The situation had gone on long enough. The situation had grown tiresome. What was always the case was that each side was better off with the other. And so a deal has been reached. The deal broke via various reports on Monday morning. The Commanders on their X account on Monday morning did not announce the deal, but did put out a post with a photo of McLaurin looking straight into a camera. So pseudo-confirmation from the team. And actually, Commanders limited partner Magic Johnson, he in a post on X on Monday afternoon confirmed that a deal has been reached. Quote, "I'm thrilled that we re-signed Terry McLaurin. Job well done by my partner Josh Harris and GM Adam Peters. This is great news for Commanders players, our organization, and all Commander fans. Terry is more than just a great football player. He is an outstanding leader and does tremendous things in the DMV community." End quote. I always did feel that a deal would get done before the start of the regular season, but no doubt, as this situation went on and on and on, my belief that a deal would get done lessened. But I am glad that a deal got done. Terry McLaurin is a very good receiver, is very durable, and by all indications, is a very good person. He, to me, profiles as a receiver who should age well. He, to me, is Washington's best receiver since the days of Art Monk and Gary Clark. In fact, consider this, and I posted this on X on Monday afternoon. The Redskins in July 2011 signed receiver Santana Moss to a contract extension. There since then have been just 2 instances of Washington re-signing or extending a receiver via a multi-year contract. The 2 instances, the Terry McLaurin contract extension in July 2022 and the Terry McLaurin contract extension in August 2025. That says so much about McLaurin. That, of course, also says so much about our team's issues at receiver. Now, regarding which side won, did the Commanders win? Did Terry McLaurin win? Who came out victorious in these contract extension negotiations? Well, we don't know because the reporting on the terms of the extension is, shall we say, not clear. First of all, there has been little to no reporting on what matters the most with the extension, the money fully guaranteed at signing. Second of all, whether the extension is a 3-year, $96 million extension, or a 3-year extension worth more than $96 million, or a 3-year extension worth up to $96 million, is unclear. Take your pick. ESPN NFL insider Adam Schefter, Commanders insider John Keim of ESPN, and Commanders insider Ben Standig each reported that the Commanders and McLaurin agreed on a 3-year contract extension worth up to $96 million. Our guest next segment, Adam Kilgore of the Washington Post. He reported that the Commanders and McLaurin agreed on a 3-year contract extension worth $96 million and potentially more. NFL insider Jordan Schultz and Commanders insider Nikki Javala of The Athletic each reported that the Commanders and McLaurin agreed on a 3-year contract extension worth over $96 million. Until we know the specifics of the extension, it's impossible to judge who won. And of course, what's likely the case is that each side won and lost, that each side gave a little in order to get this deal done. Understand the way that reporting on contracts in the NFL works. The initial details of a contract almost always are leaked by the player's agent to the media. So the initial details are almost always very favorable to the player. And then more details come out, and the deal inevitably doesn't look so great. I saw a lot of people on Monday celebrating this extension as a win for Terry McLaurin and his agent, Buddy Baker. 3 years, $96 million. $32 million average annual value, $32 million AAV. Hey, maybe all of that is in fact the case, but I would slow your roll on that. Because the details that were initially out there almost certainly came from Buddy Baker, and it is very odd and perhaps very telling that there has been so little reporting on what matters most with the extension, the money fully guaranteed at signing. Perhaps because that money isn't especially high. So we got to get the specifics on the extension. McLaurin did not get a $32 million AAV if this is a 3-year extension worth up to $96 million. Now, if this is a 3-year, $96 million extension, then he did get a $32 million AAV. And by the way, I am totally fine if he got a $32 million AAV. Good for him. But of course, the AAV is one thing. The money fully guaranteed at signing is the other thing, and we got to find that out. But, let's put aside who won this contract battle and just enjoy the fact that the Commanders, our win now, Super Bowl contending Commanders, have resolved their contract extension saga with their number one receiver, Terry McLaurin. This is wonderful news. His hold-in is done. His request to be traded, not that ever felt that sincere, is not being met. The prodigal son has returned. We give him a big hug. And as I said throughout this process, holdouts, hold-ins, even trade requests, these things have become regular parts of NFL business. You can't take them personally. These things now are not the big relationship-wrecking ordeals that these things were years ago. And so I was never mad at Terry McLaurin. I certainly was never mad at the Commanders. Each side was acting in its own self-interest. Each side was doing what it felt was best. I can respect that. Resolution has been reached. Now we can move on. This was Adam Schefter on ESPN's NFL Live on Monday afternoon.
Terry McLaurin and the Washington Commanders have reached agreement on a 3-year deal worth up to $96 million. McLaurin was entering the last year of his contract and obviously looking for a raise. The two sides have been discussing a deal. We are at August 25th. The season opens next week. The Commanders are busy getting ready for the regular season opener against the New York Giants. McLaurin hasn't practiced this summer, and if there were a time to get a deal done to keep alive his chances of playing in that regular season opener, this would be it. This morning, they reached agreement on a deal that will end his hold-in, allow him to get back on the practice field, and means he'll suit up week 1.
Lovely to hear all of that, isn't it? By the way, Adam Schefter on ESPN's Get Up on Monday morning said that the Commanders and Terry McLaurin still were far apart on a contract extension. And I bring that up not to shame Schefter, but to again highlight something that I have been noticing. Commanders general manager Adam Peters has shut off all leaks with the organization. Nothing is getting out these days unless he wants it out. Nobody, not one person, reported that the two sides were close to a deal. And then out of nowhere, the news of a deal broke on Monday morning. The same morning on which arguably the number one NFL insider said that the two sides still were far apart on a deal. Think about that. Adam Peters has the team on lock in terms of leaks. Here was ESPN NFL analyst Dan Orlovsky on ESPN's NFL Live on Monday afternoon on the impact of the Commanders agreeing with Terry McLaurin on a contract extension.
Massive, needed. You weren't a real contender in the division without Terry McLaurin. I also think, just bring it to the football field, this offense without Terry McLaurin was playing in red zone spacing in the open field. Meaning, when you play down in the red zone as an offense, everyone talks about how the field gets shrunk down. The defense only has to defend 20 yards of depth, 30 yards of depth. it would have been the case in the open field without Terry McLaurin like that. Teams would just have played so much closer to the line of scrimmage. Now with Terry back, you get the vertical presence of your offense back. The Jayden Daniels rookie season that we saw with so many of those magical throws downfield, not only the clutch ones, but that connection. It also allows Debo to live in Debo's role. It also allows the Luke McCaffrey to live in the Luke McCaffrey role. So the impact that he has on this football team and its ability to win games, I think, is on par with the Jamar Chase and a Justin Jefferson because of the way that he allows that offense and specifically Jayden to push the ball downfield.
Well, Terry McLaurin, upon signing this 3-year contract extension, will be under contract through the 2028 season, his age 33 season. McLaurin has had at least 1,000 receiving yards in each of 5 consecutive regular seasons, 2020 through 2024. That is a franchise record for most consecutive regular seasons, each with at least 1,000 receiving yards. So the previous record was 3. McLaurin in the 2024 regular season had 13 touchdown receptions, setting a franchise record for most touchdown receptions in a regular season. He, to me, is a top 10, top 15 receiver in the NFL, and a contract extension for him, finally, mercifully, is done. The Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers. It has been a Washington, D.C. institution for decades. If you feel that you've been wronged, if you think that you've been wronged but aren't sure, contact the Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers, and schedule a no-obligation appointment. Call 202-902-7611 or visit WashingtonDCInjuryLawyers.com and tell the Nace Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. The Nace Law Group offers fierce advocacy on behalf of medical malpractice, birth injury, and personal injury victims. Led by the great Chris Nace, the Nace Law Group is focused on providing exceptional care and counsel for those who need such things the most. The Nace Law Group fights for what it believes in, you, your family, and your future. You with the Nace Law Group have an experienced advocate on your side. The Nace Law Group has secured millions of dollars in verdict and settlement amounts for clients to better enable them to care for themselves and their families. Call 202-902-7611 or visit WashingtonDCInjuryLawyers.com and tell the Nace Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. That's 202-902-7611 or WashingtonDCInjuryLawyers.com, and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. The Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers. So we on Sunday afternoon had the Commanders announcing having traded their RB1 for the previous 3 seasons, Brian Robinson Jr., to the San Francisco 49ers for a 6th-round pick in the 2026 NFL Draft. We on Monday morning had the reports of the Commanders and receiver Terry McLaurin at last having agreed on a contract extension, and we on Tuesday have the Commanders cut down to 53. It is by 4 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday that each NFL team must have its active roster and a maximum of 53 players, and it is on Wednesday that each NFL team can construct a practice squad of up to 17 players. This as long as one player qualifies and is designated as an international player. I am very pleased to welcome to the Al Galdi podcast Adam Kilgore of the Washington Post. Adam has been doing a terrific job of covering the Commanders for the Post. His projected 53-man roster for the Commanders came out on WashingtonPost.com on Monday morning. Adam has been with the Post for years, including serving as its beat writer for the Nationals for the 2010 through 2014 seasons. You can follow Adam on X at Adam Kilgore WP. Hey, Adam, how are you?
I'm good, Al. It's great to be with you. Looking forward to seeing what the Commanders do with these cuts coming up.
The Commanders and Terry McLaurin agreeing on a contract extension. You were all over the news when it broke on Monday morning. As we know with NFL contracts, it's hard to truly judge them until we get the complete and accurate numbers. But off what we do know, of what you've gathered and your reporting, what do you make of the deal?
Yeah, I think that Terry McLaurin did really well for himself. The Commanders had basically all of the leverage from business standpoint. The one piece of leverage that McLaurin had was, they really didn't have anyone remotely capable of replacing him especially on the outside. But he was kind of over a barrel, as most NFL players are with NFL teams, just because of the NFL salary structure. And look, he's going to be going into his age 30 season by average annual value, the 6th highest paid wideout in the NFL. Most of the executives that I was talking to during the process around the league, just kind of bouncing things off of them, roughly $30 million AAV was what I was getting back. So he beat that. as one example, he's making more now than Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's a superstar wide receiver who's 4 years younger than him. And again, as you said very astutely to start, the guarantees are going to tell the whole story, and we don't have those yet. But even still, I think he's really well with his contract, and from the Commanders' perspective, the sound the trumpets. I mean, it takes off the biggest hindrance of their season. The biggest obstacle to them sort of sustaining the momentum of last year going into week one.
The reporting on the terms of the Terry McLaurin contract extension with the Commanders is a little confusing. I have seen 3 years, $96 million. I've seen 3 years worth over $96 million. I've seen 3 years worth up to $96 million. Big difference between all three of those terms. You on X on Monday morning wrote, quote, Terry McLaurin's deal is for $96 million with the chance to be worth more. Person familiar with the situation said, end quote. So that's your intel, that this extension is a 3-year, $96 million extension, correct?
My understanding, and again, we'll get the full details eventually. My understanding is that it could be a little more even, depending on what happens. I don't know exactly how much more, but it was my understanding that it's a $96 million contract, and there could be some incentive that takes it higher. But like all NFL contracts, everything is up to $96 million. It's not going to be remotely close to being all guaranteed. But if he plays great for 4 more years, because the contract is added on to the 1 year he has left, so it's not wiping out what he's making this year. It starts next year. And so, if he plays great in 4 years from now, it could be worth even more than $96 million. But yeah, yep.
What factors ultimately got the Commanders and Terry McLaurin to agree on a contract extension? What pushed this across the goal line?
In the big picture, there was the only answer for both sides that it was gonna get done. The Commanders were not going to be able to have a functional offense without Terry McLaurin, really, and they weren't going to trade him for that reason, and because they weren't getting back any kind of draft compensation from a team that had to part ways with draft capital and then pay McLaurin what he wanted. So that made no sense for the Commanders. And McLaurin wasn't going to get this kind of money from anybody else. I think the Commanders did a good job of not just caving to the idea that, well, you put in 6 great years with dismal quarterbacks and Dan Snyder in the background screwing everything up, so here's all the money. I think that's kind of a sign of maturity of Adam Peters's and Josh Harris's stewardship here. But at the end of the day, both sides needed to make this happen. And I think all along, throughout the league, even in Washington with teammates and people in high places with the Commanders, I think everyone thought this was going to get done. I do think it is going to be mildly detrimental that it took this long, that Terry McLaurin missed almost a whole training camp to sort of grow his relationship with Jayden Daniels and to fit in next to Deebo Samuel and all those things. So I'm not going to wave that away as nothing. Then again, he is an incredibly smart football player. Has incredible rapport with Daniels already. So, I don't think it's the end of the world either that he didn't have those, 15 or 16 practices.
All right. When it comes to the cut down to 53, do you see Commanders general manager Adam Peters as having a lot of tough decisions?
Yeah, honestly, in terms of 53, not really, at least initially. I think once they traded Brian Robinson, that sort of solved or revealed kind of the one potential big name cut that could have happened. I'm sure internally there's going to be some debates, but not in ways that are going to have a dramatic impact on the season. There's probably bigger decisions for them to make, honestly, when it comes time to sort out the practice squad, who they want to keep there, who they think they can get onto that practice squad without losing in waivers. I do think there are a couple of veteran guys that maybe don't fit on the 53 that they hope to get there to maybe elevate from a special team standpoint, like a veteran linebacker like Duke Riley, a veteran cornerback like Antonio Hamilton, who's drawn some praise from Dan Quinn. Those guys, to me, I don't think they are looking great for 53, but I think they could end up being like real contributors in the team because they were available in the middle of the summer, so they're not demonstrably not in demand players. So you probably get those guys through waivers and onto the practice squad, and they might actually end up playing a little bit just because of their special teams ability. But I don't think there's like big decisions like, ooh, this fifth round draft pick might not make it, or they only had 5 draft picks. They all seem pretty safe to me. There's a couple of like undrafted guys that may or may not make it, but those aren't gonna, keep you up at night. And so, I don't think it's a huge day of drama considering that the Brian Robinson situation is already resolved.
Josh Johnson quite clearly beat out Sam Hartman for the Commanders' QB3 job, but it's not like Johnson was great in the 2025 preseason. He just was not awful like Hartman. Do you think that the team will put Johnson on the 53-man roster or cut him and try to get him to the practice squad?
That's a really good question. When I did my own projection, I had Johnson on. I just think it's too much of a risk if you think anything at all about Johnson, just because Marcus Mariota has been dealing with that Achilles tendonitis for most of training camp. They have a game in a couple of weeks. I don't know how comfortable you'd be bringing in a potential number 2, depending on Mariota's recovery for week 1, maybe week 2 as well. Jeff Driscoll, who was with him for a lot of last year, he's still a free agent. So, if they decide like, we just saw nothing from Josh Johnson and we'd rather go that direction, maybe. And maybe they believe that, Josh Johnson's 39 years old and, he's not going to be anyone's idea of like a developmental quarterback. And, that's maybe he's not the kind of guy that teams are looking for this time of year. Maybe they can get him through. To me, I don't see why you take that risk because Johnson wasn't great. He did throw 3 interceptions in the preseason, but I thought he was pretty steady. And it's hard to ask for much more than what he gives you as a third quarterback or a potential backup early in the year, depending on Mariota's extent of his recovery. And so I do have him on as a third quarterback, partly too because I don't think you're really kicking anybody that you're like dying to keep off. I do think it's a little bit of a soft 53. When you get pummeled by 70 points in 3 preseason games, that kind of tells you where the roster is at the bottom. I think that's not really on Adam Pearce. I think that's just a sign of the degradation that was on the roster at the end of Ron Rivera's tenure. I think they are still about a year or 2 away from kind of where they want to be at the bottom of the roster, as great of a job as Adam Pearce has done turning over to the top of the roster, to make a contender in the NFC.
It's not always the case that an NFL team has 4 running backs on its 53-man roster. It's not always the case that an NFL team has 4 tight ends on its 53-man roster. But the Commanders on their initial 53-man roster for the 2025 season may well have both 4 running backs and 4 tight ends. Do you see the team doing that?
That's what I've got. I think Colson Yankoff had a really great, he would be the 4th tight end, maybe the 3rd tight end, considering that Ben Sinnott really didn't have a great, a standout camp, certainly as a pass receiver. Colson Yankoff is a really good special teams player, which I don't think you can say that about Ben Sinnott right now. So he's got a role in the team for sure. And kind of flashed a little bit in a couple of the games. He had that long, like 52-yard catch and run against Baltimore. Just a really good athlete. And I wouldn't, I don't know what exactly the Commanders would say for their official depth chart, behind closed doors, but just the way that they both played in training camp, I think Yankoff's probably the 3rd tight end, and it's still too soon to give up on a guy that you thought was, worth a 2nd-round pick a year ago. And so I don't think you're going to cut Sinnott, but I think that Yankoff straight up outplayed him during training camp. So that's why you have 4 tight ends with John Bates and Zach Ertz, being obviously on the team. Running back, they really like Jeremy Nichols. He's like really solid. He can play a 3rd down role. He can play every down role if the guys get dinged up. He can even contribute on teams. So, maybe they think they can get him to the practice squad, but I think he'd get picked up. So there's like I said, there's not a crazy crunch at the bottom of this roster, and they like him. I think he's on the team. Bill Merritt, obviously what he's done in camp, he's a huge standout. Chris Rodriguez, so I still think is probably going to be the actual starter, as excited as we all justifiably are about Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. And then Eckler's on the team too. So I think that's, almost self-explanatory how you get to 8 in those 2 positions where, you are right. Not every team does that, but they just have a lot of different kinds of guys at those positions.
What's more likely for the Commanders at running back in the 2025 regular season? One guy emerges as the true RB1, or the team goes running back by committee?
Yeah, I think for sure it's going to be a committee approach. I think that, Chris Rodriguez will be probably the starter in air quotes. But I think the early down the reps will probably be split between him and Ja'Cory Merritt and even Austin Eckler. Eckler is obviously going to be the third down pass catching back. And I think McNichols is there to sort of just serve as like, a reserve and a potential fill-in for all of those roles. And so, yeah, I do think at the end of the day, like last year, they didn't have a running back get more than 190 carries. And I think that's probably how it'll end up being this year too. Who knows? Maybe Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt becomes like a star and is just an every down back. But that would surprise me because I think they do plan on Rodriguez to fill a big role. I think Chris Rodriguez is actually getting slept on. Like if you play fantasy football, I think I would probably, especially for the value you're going to get in your draft, Rodriguez I think is probably a better pick than even Bill Merritt. By the end of the year, it's possible that Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt is the far better player and plays more. But early on, Chris Rodriguez is going to get the short yards. He's going to score the touchdowns to the extent there are running back touchdowns in this offense. He'll probably get more carries in the first 3-4 weeks of the season at the very least. And so, yeah, I think he's getting flipped on because he had a great camp. He came in much better shape this year. He's faster than he has been. So he does give you a physicality, but also a little bit more explosion than I think he did even a year ago.
Much more with Adam Kilgore in moments. Catering by Uptown provides catering to perfection. Whatever event you're planning, especially a wedding, visit cateringbyuptown.com. Mention that Al Galdi sent you and see what Catering by Uptown can do for you. Catering by Uptown provides both great service and a great price. Catering by Uptown is a family business. It's run by the Pereiras, who are great Commanders fans and loyal supporters of this podcast. Catering by Uptown specializes in handling everything so that you don't have to. Catering by Uptown understands that special events deserve to be celebrated in style and thus takes care of every detail so that you can enjoy your event. Great service, amazing cuisine, and reliability are the foundation of what makes Catering by Uptown one of the most referred caterers throughout Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Northern Virginia. And know this, if you visit cateringbyuptown.com and click on venues, you can set up your own personal tour of one of Catering by Uptown's premier venues, including outstanding waterfront venues. Catering by Uptown offers the ability to coordinate services at over 100 of the best reception halls, vineyards, farms, historic homes, event venues, banquet facilities, and wedding venues in the area. Visit cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. That's cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. We're talking Commanders with Adam Kilgore of the Washington Post. When do you think that the team started to sour on Brian Robinson?
Yeah, I'm not sure there was a souring. I just think it was more circumstantial. One, running back was a position where they did have a surplus, maybe the only one of the roster where they had a real surplus. And Brian Robinson probably presented more of a name brand, more of a value to other teams. And so if they were going to try to find a 2026 draft pick somewhere on this roster, that was a really logical place to start. That's one. Number two is going into his last year of his contract. And I think that brings 2 points. One, he may not have a long-term future here anyway, so you can part with him. You're only losing 1 year. The other part of that is I think they may have wanted to get out ahead of him not being super happy with his number of touches going into a contract year. That's a problem that no longer exists because he's not here. And so, I think it's kind of a mix of all those things. He became expendable. He did have some value with the rest of the league, so he would bring back a pick. And they had guys that could fill in and do what he does. I think you're getting 95 or 90%, whatever you want to put it. You're getting a lot of what he can do from Chris Rodriguez, and then they have plenty of other backs. Even guys like Demetric Felton and Kaz Allen, they had good camps. I wouldn't be surprised if they end up on another team's roster. So it was a position that they could trade from as a strength, and I think that's as much what it came down to. I think I think they like Brian Robinson as a player. They just didn't really need him, and they can get a different kind of value for him.
When doing your projected 53-man roster for the Commanders, was any position group with the defense especially challenging?
Maybe defensive line a little bit. I only ended up going combination of 8 DNs and D tackles, which is a little bit light, but I think that they're not going to have that much of a problem to get some combination of Carl Davis, Sheldon Day, and Eddie Goldman onto the practice squad. And so if they have a depth issue, probably one, two, or all three of those guys will probably get through. And so, I think you can get those guys. It's like that. That's kind of like what I was getting back to the point about like the way Rivera's era left the roster. Ideally, those are like young players that you're trying to develop that you see, replacing guys going, you can let guys go instead of signing them on a second contract. You play the comp pick game, the thing the Ravens have going, where it's just a cycle of guys. The Commanders like don't have that right now. Instead, the guys on their practice squad are just solid guys who've had serviceable and very very solid NFL careers who just are kind of hanging on for a couple more years. And so for the time being, I don't think you really need to protect those guys. Like, guys like that are available in free agency anyway. So I guess point being is that, I think it's like 8 D linemen is pretty light, but that's kind of where I got to just because I think you can supplement that with guys that you have and get in the practice squad.
What's the biggest surprise you have on your projected 53?
I'm not sure I have that many surprises, honestly. Let me see here. Hold on, I'm going to pull it up real quick. Honestly, maybe just keeping the 3 quarterbacks of Josh Johnson. I don't know if everyone's doing that. Let's see. Yeah, I don't have surprises. Maybe that's because I'm always going off my own, what I think. I mean, if there's one guy who I think maybe is not obvious, I did have KJ Osborne on there as a sixth receiver. I just think that he's shown some real speed in training camp. He's got a lot of reliability, a lot of experience, and he gives you a backup in the punt return game if something happens, in game to Jalen Lane. And so, yeah, that's I guess as far as I would sort of reach out there as a potential surprise, but maybe that's not even that surprising.
Commanders kicker Matt Gay, he just had an iffy preseason, went just 3 for 5 on field goals, though the misses did come on attempts of 49 and 53 yards. You, during a pre-practice press conference for head coach Dan Quinn on August 10th, asked him about potentially bringing in competition for Gay. What do you think the team is at with Gay?
Yeah, I mean, as far as I can tell, they still haven't brought anybody in, so they have been very steadfast in supporting Matt Gay and just saying he's our guy. They did sign him to a 1-year, $4.3 million contract, and so I guess that again is a show of their faith in what he can do. He did miss that 53-yarder in the preseason finale against the Ravens. Plenty of leg on that one. It looked like a good kick, just kind of pulled it a little bit. And at the end of camp, he was much better in practice. He had a great start to camp. He kind of scuffled in the middle, and that was when I did ask Dan Quinn if they thought about bringing in a kicker for competition. But then he kind of pulled together. He had a really good end of camp in practice. And so I'm sure he and they were disappointed that he missed that one in the game. But that really wasn't indicative of the way he was kicking by the end of training camp. It did surprise me a little bit, though, that they never brought in a kicker just because Adam Peters and Dan Quinn are so committed to the idea of competition within their team. But maybe that just goes to show their faith in Matt Gay.
So much conversation about contracts with the Terry McLaurin situation. You, in a Washington Post piece that came out this past January 22nd, wrote about the skyrocketing pay for NFL quarterbacks. Jayden Daniels, per NFL rules, is not eligible for a contract extension until after his 3rd NFL season, so the 2027 offseason. The highest average annual value, the highest AAV for an NFL quarterback right now is $60 million for the Dallas Cowboys' Dak Prescott, per reports. I've wondered about this. I'm curious about your take. If Jayden Daniels continues to play at a high level, could it be that he, come the 2027 offseason, becomes the first $100 million AAV quarterback? That the Commanders in the 2027 offseason sign him to a deal in which he is making $100 million per season?
I haven't thought too much about the exact number, but you're right. I mean, if you're the Commanders, I think you want to get that deal done as soon as you can, just because it's only going to go up because the salary cap keeps going up. And the sooner that you sign to that contract, you can start, like, look what the Chiefs did with Mahomes. I mean, that contract is so creative because they basically use Mahomes' contract as a bank. I mean, they just move the money around over like 13 years whenever they need extra salary cap money. And, I mean, you need a willing partner, and Mahomes certainly was, because he understands that, he's getting his money. It's not like he's taking a pay cut or anything, but the more flexibility you give the team as a quarterback, the more ability they have to help you and build the roster around you, and you win Super Bowls and get to do State Farm commercials and make your money that way too. With Daniels, though, I mean, I think one point of that story I wrote back in January was that, like, teams will just go to the top of the market with their quarterback, even when the quarterback's not remotely an elite guy. I mean, like, if you're the Dolphins, like, what are you doing signing Tua Tagovailoa to a top of the market deal, or even the Packers with Jordan Love at one point was the highest paid player in the NFL. Now, Jayden Daniels is a different animal. If his rookie year says anything about the way he's going to play going forward, I think that negotiation goes something like this: Josh Harris brings Jayden Daniels a piece of paper and says, "Mr. Daniels, how much money would you like to make?" And then he writes the number down, and then they sign the contract. I mean, he's just, he's going to be the guy, period, point blank, top of the market, reset the market. Like you said, $100 million. If the salary cap gets to be $350 million by 2027, yeah. I mean, that's not out of bounds. And so that will be fascinating to see what the actual number is, but it's going to be all the money. I mean, just, please, Jayden, what would you like to make playing football for us? And that's the negotiation.
The salary cap, as we know, is soaring given the NFL's latest media rights deals, so the cap is going to keep going up. So the quarterback pay bubble is not a bubble that's going to burst anytime soon.
Yeah, his number is going to be, I guess if I would say 80 million might be like the low end of the AAV by the time he signs his deal, especially if he takes it to year 4 instead of year 3. So yeah, no, that's fast. I mean, every decision the Commanders make with their roster is with Jayden Daniels' next contract in mind. I think that's a big reason why they've signed so many of these veterans on 1 or 2 year deals, because they don't get in the way of Daniels' extension. They're going to be off the cap by the time Daniels is ready to sign his, and they just need a lot of flexibility to make that contract work. Like like a Bobby Wagner or Zach Ertz, Von Miller. Like, I mean, they seem like win now moves, but they're also clear the decks for Jayden Daniels' contract moves as well.
Adam Kilgore of the Washington Post. Adam, thanks. All the best.
Thanks, Al. Appreciate it.
All right, football season is here, and the best daily fantasy is on Prize Picks, which is offering free cash to listeners of the Al Galdi podcast. Download the Prize Picks app and use the promo code GALDI, my last name, Galdi. You do that, you get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. $50 in lineups when you play just $5. Wherever you are in the DMV, Prize Picks has something for you. Prize Picks Streak is available in Maryland. Prize Picks Pick'em is available in Virginia, and the Prize Picks Real Money Game is available in Washington, D.C. Prize Picks makes daily fantasy simple and fun. It's based on picking more or less on the day's top player projections. You choose from dozens of player projections. Prize Picks is outstanding for both pro and college football. We this weekend, Labor Day weekend, have season openers for all 7 of the FBS teams of the Mid-Atlantic region: Maryland, Navy, Virginia Tech, Virginia, James Madison, Old Dominion, and Liberty, to say nothing of so many other teams in action. Prize Picks is awesome. I've used it. It's a ton of fun. It is easy to use. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your opinions into real money. Prize Picks puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. Prize Picks offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season, and take advantage of what Prize Picks is offering to listeners of the Al Galdi podcast. Download the Prize Picks app and use the promo code GALDI, my last name, Galdi. You do that, you get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Using that promo code helps out this podcast a lot and gets you free money. Prize Picks. Run your game. I know that many of you run your own businesses, and so I want to tell you about Square. Square is an all-in-one business partner that makes your day-to-day easier. Square offers tools for every part of your business, from point-of-sale systems and payments to inventory and customer tools. Square brings everything together in one simple platform so you can stay organized, sell anywhere, and keep things moving. Square is easy to use. If you're not technology savvy, no problem. The software is incredibly straightforward and intuitive. You don't need special special training, you can just set up Square and start taking payments quickly. Square is flexible. It adjusts to what you need. With Square, you choose the tools that you need and you use them when you want. No long-term contracts required. You can sell in person or online from one location or several. Square is built to move with you and adapt as your business grows. Square keeps up so you don't have to slow down. Get everything you need to run and grow your business without any long-term commitments. And here's a great deal. You can get up to $200 off Square hardware at square.com/go/Galdi. That's SQUARE.com/GO/GALDI. You can get up to $200 off Square hardware at square.com/go/Galdi. Run your business smarter with Square. Get started today. Well, the number one team in MLB's 2025 regular season in home runs by miles is the New York Yankees, 218, and their latest three came at the expense of the Nationals, who got out-homered 3-1 in a 10-5 loss at the Yankees on Monday night in Game 1 of a three-game series. The Nats scored 5 meaningless runs in the top of the ninth. The Nats in this regular season now are 53-78, worst record in the National League East, second worst record in the National League, and the Nats run differential now is minus 158, second worst run differential in the NL. The Nats so are the kings of scoring meaningless runs in the ninth innings of bad losses. The Nats have done this so many times this season. The Nats on Monday night scored 5 runs, totaled 9 hits, worked 5 walks, and went 1 for 4 with runners in scoring position. But all 5 of the runs, 4 of the hits, and 2 of the walks came in the top of the ninth that was total garbage time. The Nats' 9 hits were a home run and 8 singles. Jacob Young, he is the Nats starting center fielder and number 9 batter, went 1 for 3 with a grand slam and a walk. He did get picked off at first base, but Young in that Nats 5-run ninth had a 2-out opposite field grand slam to right center field to cut the Nats deficit to 10-5. I mention this because Jacob Young never homers, and yet he homered in this game. The homer was his first in MLB's 2025 regular season, and just his 4th homer over 956 career MLB regular season plate appearances. He hits for no power. Jacob Young is a good defender. Jacob Young can run, although he makes way too many outs on the base paths, but he hits for no power, and yet he in this game hit a grand slam. A meaningless grand slam, but a grand slam. James Wood, he is the Nats starting left fielder and number 1 batter, went 2 for 5 with 2 singles and 3 more strikeouts. Luis Garcia Jr., he is the Nats starting second baseman and number 3 batter, went 2 for 4 with 2 singles. A rough outing for Nats starting pitcher Brad Lord in this 10-5 loss at the Yankees on Monday night. Lord came into the game having been so good for the Nats in this regular season, 2.3 wins above replacement per Baseball Reference and 96 into third innings over 2 stints in the rotation and 2 stints in the bullpen. But he on Monday night got ripped. He allowed 7 runs, 6 earned, and 4 into third innings. He gave up 8 hits, which were 2 home runs, 2 doubles, and 4 singles. He issued 2 walks. He did record 5 strikeouts, and he did throw a lot of strikes. 78 pitches, 52 strikes, just 26 balls. But Lord in the bottom of the 5th allowed 5 runs. He, in facing 6 batters, gave up a home run, a double, and 3 singles. So the homer was a 1-out, 2-run homer by Jazz Chisholm Jr. to right field for a 7-0 Yankees lead. And Lord then got pulled from the game. The Nats relief pitching in this 10-5 loss at the Yankees on Monday night. 3 Nats relievers combined to allow 3 runs in 3 2/3 innings, but 2 of the relievers were good. Jackson Rutledge tossed 1 2/3 scoreless innings with 2 strikeouts. Cole Henry allowed 3 runs in 1 inning. He in the bottom of the 7th gave up a 2-out first pitch, 3-run homer by Jason Dominguez to right field for a 10-0 Yankees lead. P.J. Poulin tossed the scoreless bottom of the 8th despite giving up a 1-out single and then issuing a 1-out walk. Game 2 for the Nats at the Yankees Tuesday night at 7:05. MacKenzie Gore will be the Nats starting pitcher. So the Orioles are in the midst of an 8-game homestand against two of the best teams in the majors, and so far are 1-4 during the homestand. The O's over this past Thursday through Sunday lost 3 out of 4 games against the American League West leading Houston Astros at Oriole Park at Camden Yards, and the O's on Monday evening lost to the Boston Red Sox 4-3 at Oriole Park at Camden Yards in Game 1 of a 4-game series. This was a game in which the O's blew a 3-1 fifth-inning lead. The O's in MLB's 2025 regular season now are 60-71, worst record in the American League East. But here's some good news. Game 2 for the O's against the Red Sox at Oriole Park at Camden Yards is on Tuesday evening at 6:35, and Kyle Bradish will be the Orioles starting pitcher. He'll be making his first MLB regular season start since undergoing Tommy John surgery in June 2024. Exciting news. Bradish was so good during the 2023 regular season. The Orioles starting pitcher on Monday evening was Tomoyuki Sagano. He had been good in each of his 3 previous outings, but he in this game allowed 4 runs in 6 innings. He gave up 6 hits, which were 2 home runs, a double, and 3 singles. He issued 2 walks. He did record 6 strikeouts. He threw 87 pitches, 55 strikes, 32 balls. So Sagano in a 3-run fifth for the Red Sox gave up a 1-out, 3-run homer by Jayden Daniels to center field for a 4-3 Red Sox lead. That homer went a projected 407 feet per StatCast. Tomoyuki Sagano now for this regular season, 25 starts, ERA of 4.06, whip of 1.27. The Orioles relief pitching in this 4-3 loss to the Red Sox on Monday evening was good. 2 Orioles relievers combined for 3 scoreless innings. Grant Wolfram tossed 2 perfect innings with 2 swinging strikeouts, and Corbin Martin tossed the scoreless top of the 9th with 3 strikeouts, despite giving up a leadoff single and committing a throwing error on a pickoff throw. But the Orioles offense in this game was bad. Just 3 runs, just 6 hits, 3 walks, just 1 for 8 with runners in scoring position. The O's struck out 13 times. The 6 hits were a home run, 2 doubles, and 3 singles. A bright spot was Colton Cowser. He is the Orioles starting center fielder and number 6 batter, went 3 for 4 with a solo homer, a 2-run single, and another single. Cowser now for this regular season, 252 plate appearances, OPS of 719. He only has 52 hits, but 23 of them have been extra base hits. But not nearly enough firepower for the O's, who right now have infielder Jordan Westburg, catcher Adley Rutschman, and outfielder Tyler O'Neill on the 10-day injured list. And remember, the O's traded key hitters and first baseman/outfielder Ryan O'Hearn and outfielders Ramon Laureano and Cedric Mullins in the lead-up to the 2025 MLB trade deadline on July 31st. And that'll do it for you and me for now. Keep the feedback coming. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Wednesday show, episode 1142, will include a lot for you on the Commanders, as we on Tuesday have the Cutdown to 53. Also on Wednesday's show, I'll talk Nationals and Orioles. The Nats are at the New York Yankees Tuesday night at 7:05 in Game 2 of a 3-game series. The O's are home to the Boston Red Sox Tuesday evening at 6:35 in Game 2 of a 4-game series. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, and I'll talk to you on Wednesday.
The season opens next week. The Commanders are busy getting ready for the regular season opener against the New York Giants. McLaurin hasn't practiced this summer, and if there were a time to get a deal done to keep alive his chances of playing in that regular season opener, this would be it. This morning, they reached agreement on a deal that will end his hold-in, allow him to get back on the practice field, and means he'll suit up week 1.